Joining me on Decent Cities Live from the Florida Bitcoin and Blockchain Summit is Director at Handshake and connected to Namebase, Mr. Johnny Wu. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
So, we've been talking for a while. I love Namebase. I love Handshake. I love the idea of being able to own my top-level domain, which is the protocol that Handshake folks are working on. So for folks who aren't familiar with it, let's just dive a little bit into what Handshake is and why it's awesome.
Yeah, so Handshake, easiest way to think about it, these are domain names that you can actually own. So the only real way to own a domain name, say like google.com, is if you own the top level domain. So that's the domain extension part, that would be .com. Otherwise, you're just renting from somebody else's top level domain.
Yeah. So the system that's set up now, ICANN is sort of the nonprofit that organizes it all, administers it,
Yep.
And they give out permission for companies like VeriSign who own the .com.
Yep.
Pretty much every top level domain we're used to is owned by somebody, and someone's making that money via a proxy like GoDaddy or whomever to rent that name, but they don't really own it. And we've seen the government take down sites all the time.
Yeah.
And so now with Handshake, you actually own the top level domain. It's censorship resistant. It's on the blockchain.
Yeah.
And then you can just be creative with whatever you want to do with the second level domains in front of the dot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually really succinct. I think it might be helpful to just understand why, how this system is currently set up. So you mentioned ICANN. They manage something called the root zone file. So you can think of this like a spreadsheet. You have column A of the spreadsheet is .com, .net, .org, all the domain extensions. And then column B of that spreadsheet are the servers that those domains point to. That spreadsheet is controlled by just ICANN. So if you want to get your own top-level domain, then you go to ICANN, you submit an application to them. I think they shared that the total expected processing fees from start to finish is like $9 million, which doesn't include like the annual renewal fees and stuff, right? Whereas on Handshake, it's just you can get a top-level domain, just be the highest bidder in an auction, which is really cool because then the price of any given name is just purely market-driven. There's no central authority who dictates the price of a specific name.
And you've built an overlay to help people use Handshake HNS, buy HNS tokens, and bid on auctions called Namebase. Can you talk a little bit about what Namebase is and why it was started?
Yeah, so just to clarify, I'm not a founder. I'm just an employee at Namebase. I manage our community, handle some of our business development, operations, and so on. Namebase is an on-ramp for Handshake. So anything blockchain related, immediately you're like, okay, that's really complicated. Our job is to make it as easy as possible for anybody to onboard onto Handshake. So I think the cool thing is about a third of our users are brand new to blockchain. Handshake is the very first crypto. We're bringing no coiners into the blockchain space. And I think that's really awesome just because that seems to suggest that we are doing what we set out to do, make it really easy for people to interact with Handshake. So if you come to Namebase, we're an exchange. We're a unique exchange in the sense that we only support one crypto, which is Handshake. So you can come to our exchange to purchase Handshake coins. You can then use those Handshake coins to get yourself a Handshake name. We're a marketplace. You can sell those names directly on Namebase. And then we're also a registry. So if you have a really cool top-level domain like one or something, you can sell subdomains on those through our registry.
Yeah, and just to be clear, name collisions and then how will the browsers and how can people use the domains? You've reserved 100,000 top-level domains that are connected, kind of out already in the ICANN world. So those aren't touched, and those include brand names and whatnot. But the way Handshake works, it can actually play along with the existing root file, so it doesn't have to be an either or. Correct?
Yeah, so what the creators of Handshake did, and Namebase did not create Handshake, put that out there. The creators of Handshake, they blacklisted the existing ICANN top-level domains. So if you're connected to a Handshake resolver, you can just visit google.com just fine. You won't notice any difference in your internet experience, but you just expand the number of names you have access to. So now on top of those ICANN top-level domains, you can also access all the Handshake top-level domains. And then the 100,000 names you were mentioning was the Alexa top 100K list. So Alexa, they do website rankings based on traffic. The founders took a snapshot of that list back in 2018 and then reserved all of those names for, even though they're not top-level domains, they still reserved those on Handshake. So like Facebook .com, definitely not a. Actually, Facebook might have their own top-level domain, but say Bitcoin.com, they don't have. They don't own .bitcoin, but .bitcoin is still reserved on Handshake for them.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So when we look at using Handshake names now, Chrome doesn't yet natively resolve them. So what are the options for getting to a Handshake domain?
Yeah, so the easiest way, I call it level 0, because you don't need to configure anything. If you go to hns.to, so HNS is the ticker for Handshake, and then .to, you can think of it like take me to somewhere. If you go to hns.to, you can just input any Handshake name there. You can try Johnny Woo, it's my Handshake name, and it will just resolve. Because hns.to handles the resolution for you. That way you don't need to download anything. But if you want the true Handshake experience, then you can level yourself up. You can point your DNS to hdns.io. We run a public DNS resolver. In that case, then you don't need hns.to anymore. You just access Handshake pretty much directly. And then one final layer above that is if you're willing to install something, then I recommend Fingertip. So that's an SPV node, which basically means, so hns.to, they are your gateway to the Handshake blockchain. hdns.io also pretty much serves as your bridge between your browser and the Handshake blockchain. But if you download Fingertip, then you just have direct access to the blockchain. You don't need to trust any person in the middle to kind of hold your hand to the chain. You just get there directly. So then you have the censorship resistance benefits, since nobody can really stop you from accessing that blockchain.
That's great. And one point that you made that I thought was huge about DeFi in general is you can have you're not truly decentralized if your domain is not decentralized. Can you dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, so I make this point for like all the dApps out there and decentralized exchanges. While your backend is decentralized, if your users can't access it through your domain name, then they can't get to your service, and that's a central point of failure. So I make that point because if your domain name isn't decentralized, then you have so many layers that could take it down. You have your registrar level, like say GoDaddy, they could take you down. You have, if it's a .com, you have VeriSign who could take you down, and then you have ICANN at the top. Whereas if you swap over to a decentralized naming system like Handshake, then nobody can take you down. So you don't have to worry about your domain name disappearing tomorrow. You're just good to go.
So, and I want to finish a couple cool factor items that are huge. So you can make second level domains something dot, but you don't have to. So you can have a domain, hey, what's your website address? It's Johnny Woo, and that's it. That's really cool.
Yeah, this is my favorite point. Some of our more technical community members, like D's, might not like this as much because DNS wasn't built for dotless domains. That said, I think it's really cool to just have a website that's http:// Johnny Woo. There's no like dots or anything.
Yeah.
It's just that's it. Yeah.
And also you're not limited to words. You can actually have emojis now as your domain.
Yeah, you can have your website at the poop emoji if you want, with no dots, just the poop emoji.
Awesome. Well, I can't think of a better dot to end on and point to end on than that. So Johnny Woo, Handshake, Namebase, thanks so much for sharing your info with us.
Cool. Yep. Happy to chat.